So the question is, will I read all these books? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa. I read. Welcome to my channel, and today we're talking about all the books I plan to read for the next 3 months. So this TBR is for November, December, and January in 2024, and then leading into 2025. So I have 30 books on my TBR. Most of them are KU or on Kindle, or I have to borrow them from the library. It's only this small stack that I actually physically have on me right now. I have a lot of sequels to get to. So speaking of which, I've divided my TBR into 4 categories. They are sequels, fall, Christmas, and winter. So I have a total of 18 sequels that I would like to get to. That's how many series I'm in the middle of. Some of the sequels fall under the categories of fall, Christmas, and winter, and then whatever doesn't fit under those categories, I moved to the sequel section of this TBR. And then I grabbed books that were Christmassy, obviously having a fall theme or a winter theme. And so let's get to the books I plan to read for the next few months. So let's go through the fall books, and most of the books on this section of the TBR are sequels. So in my mind, I find fantasy kind of like a fall vibe. Every single book under the fall section is fantasy and basically a sequel. The only exception is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I was just deciding to pick this up. I changed my TBR a few times, and this was always originally on my previous TBRs. Since I was in the middle of reading it, I thought I would add it to the fall section, which is perfect because this is definitely set during fall, and we're following Signa, and she keeps avoiding death. Ever since she was a baby, she's managed to escape death, and she doesn't know why. And along the way, while escaping death and having people around in her life dying, she's come acquainted with Death himself, who is basically like the Grim Reaper. And so they have a bit of a strained relationship because she blames him for all the misfortune that she's in. Since people keep dying in her life, she jumps from family to family, orphaned at an infant essentially. And she's finally at a home that is working out for her, and someone has died, and she kind of tries and solve the mystery of why this person has died. She grapples with her relationship with death, and she starts learning about herself and why she keeps escaping death. So I'm obsessed with it. I probably will end up finishing it today, but this is on my TBR. Another book for the fall theme is Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo. This is just like a companion short story collection, part of the Grisha universe. I've been meaning to read this book forever and haven't gone around to it, so it's good that I'm focusing on sequels to get to the ones that I've been meaning to for so long. This has a lot of illustrations. It's basically stories of all the saints in this world, and I think it would be just a nice cozy experience, so I've added it to my TBR. I also have Full Moon by Jim Butcher. This is the second book in the Dresden Files. In this series we're following Dresden, Harry Dresden, and he is a paranormal investigator. He solves peculiar cases that cannot be solved by the regular police. It's set in Chicago, and he often works with the Chicago police, and specifically one female detective or police officer. And so this one, based on the title, you can probably guess it's about werewolves. I'm really excited to get to it. Dresden himself is a warlock, so he has special abilities. He makes potions sometimes, and it's a bit of a, I don't want to say it's a comedy, but it's definitely funny, that's for sure. So I'm excited to get to this one. I also have The Lincoln Lawyer by Michael Connelly. This is the first book in this series, but I've read The Law of Innocence, which is another Lincoln Lawyer novel that I really liked, so I wanted to go back to book 1 and kind of start from the beginning of the series. Following Mickey, he's the Lincoln Lawyer, and he works out of his car. That's the idea. He's Lincoln Cars, and he works out of the backseat of his car. I guess he doesn't have an office space. This case that he's working on is, I think, like a playboy. He's being sued for attacking a woman. That's what it is. Mickey takes on the case, and someone else gets murdered. I don't really know much else about it. It's set in LA, and I really liked the one book I read, so I want to keep reading in this series. Another fall read I've chosen is Mile High with a Vampire by Lindsay Sands. I've read one book by this author in this series. The series called the Argano Vampire series. This is book like 33. This is an ongoing series that's been going on for like decades almost. The one book that I loved was the most recent one. I tried another book earlier in the series and I didn't really like it. I actually ended up DNFing it, which was a disappointment. So I think what I've decided is I'm gonna read the more recent installments and work my way backwards. And then once I don't like the series anymore, I'll stop reading. But I loved that previous one so much that I want to keep reading. So we are following Jet. He is a pilot and he works for the Argenal enterprise. These vampire families have these big businesses and he's a pilot and his plane crashes and he has to kind of save the people on the plane, one of which is Quinn, and she is like a recent vampire, and it's their relationship. She's just like recently been turned, so she's kind of adjusting to what it's like to being a vampire. In the series, vampires are like good. I think some rogue vampires, but for the most part these vampires are good vampires. They don't kill humans, and they kind of use science to explain why vampires exist. Either way, the romances are fun. Lindsay Sand usually has really good comedy in her books, so I'm looking forward to this one. The next one is Queen of Myth and Monsters. This is written by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the second book in the Adrian and Isolde series, and this is a vampire series. So this series is about Adrian and Isolde. She is from one kingdom, he's from another, and he's actually like the vampire king, and they decided to get married. It's kind of like a marriage of, not a marriage of convenience, but a marriage like for political gain, to make an alliance with the two kingdoms. But her kingdom despise vampires, they hate them, and so she plans to actually kill him and take over his kingdom. That was kind of the plan from the beginning, but you can probably guess in which direction it goes. So I loved the first one. I had a lot of fun reading that romance, and so I want to keep trying this series. This has bad ratings as a 3.38, which is not good for any book at all, but I thought I would give it a try, and if I don't like it then I'll just DNF it, but I'm gonna give it a go. I also have Claimed by the Wolf by Savannah Sterling. This is part of the Gold Creek Wolves series. These are just super short werewolf, alpha male, fated mate kind of short stories. I wouldn't even call them like a novella. They're super short. They're less than 100 pages, but they're on Kindle Unlimited, and I read one forever ago and I thought, well, I might as well just keep going. And he's kind of like a bad boy, she's a good girl. That's kind of the vibe. He usually hunts like the enemies for the pack. Very vague synopsis because it's super short, so, but I want to keep reading in this series. Finally, I have a Buffy comic, number 4 in season 8. It's called Time of Your Life. I've been slowly reading the season 8 graphic novels. So season 8 is basically what happens after the TV show, after season 7, and it's been an interesting journey. I don't want to say much because I don't want to spoil anything, but basically they're exploring what happened after the fallout season 7. I'm enjoying them. It's been an interesting reading experience, adjusting from going from a TV show to actual comics, because sometimes I'm like, who are you? Some of the characters I still don't really know, and some of them are hard to identify, like, oh, are you Buffy or are you Buffy? Maybe that's silly, but I've been enjoying them. It's just been kind of a casual reading experience, and I would like to get to this one. Moving on to Christmas books, I want to read A Wallflower Christmas by Lisa Kleypas. This is part of like the Wallflowers series. This is just like a novella Christmas experience. There's 4 books in this series and each following a different girl, and it's like a friend group in the Regency era, and I'm guessing this is going to be kind of like an epilogue experience where we see them with their partners and them just having like a joyous Christmas. I'm assuming that's all it is, and so maybe there's a small romance in here too. I am excited to read this. I've enjoyed the series. I've given most books either 4 stars and 1 5 stars, so I do recommend it, and it would be nice to read this for the Christmas season. I also have Peppermint Cookie Murder by Trixie Silvertail. It says it's the beginning of a series, but this is the only book out, so I don't know what that's about. But I think we're following like Santa's daughter, and she moves away from the North Pole to like open a bakery, but then a murder happens. So I think we're gonna get a lot of Christmas vibes, kind of like a cozy mystery situation, and I do want to read more though, so I'm excited to read this one. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. I've read quite a few Megan Quinns and really enjoyed them, and so I want to read her Christmas book. This is like brand new. I think it's just been released not that long ago, and it's kind of sounds like a reimagined of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I think think the Grinch himself is the actual person, but he's a grouch and he wants to disrupt her Christmas fun. It's like a neighbor situation. She loves Christmas, obviously he doesn't. And I just think that's a fun idea. This is what the vibe I'm getting from Megan Quinn, is she takes our favorite rom-coms or stories and kind of twists them to make her own. And they're always usually really original. It's just more like an idea, if anything, so I'll be excited to read this one. Her books are super steamy, I should say that though, just to warn you. The next one is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This came out last year, and the ratings aren't like great, but I do want to give it a try, and I'm surprised because it's like a full-fledged novel. It's 250 pages. I thought it was gonna just be a novella, but I consider that a novel. And basically our heroine is like observing one of the Christmas windows displays, and it isn't really good, and a guy comes up to him and is like, oh, what do you think of this window? And she's like honest and like, I don't think it's very good. I think he actually is like the owner of the department store, which is super funny. So he persuades her to like do the window displays, and she does, and it's their kind of romance, so we'll see how that goes. I also have The Christmas Bookshop, which when I read the synopsis I wasn't really sure if it's my kind of thing. It's definitely like a small town story. Like I think there are some romances in here, but I think it's going to be more like a cozy like woman's fiction. It's about a woman who moves in with her sister who's like married and has kids, and she takes on this job to fix up this bookstore that's not doing so well, kind of prepare for the Christmas season, and then maybe there's some romances. So we'll see how it goes. I've never read anything by Jenny Colgan, and from what I can tell, she writes a lot of like kind of cozy stories, either set in a bookshop or a coffee shop or I think a bakery in some sort. So sometimes they're Christmassy, sometimes they're not. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I thought it was going to be more of a romance, but I think it's more like a woman's fiction. So we'll see how it goes. This one I'm really excited about, and that is Holiday Romance. It is run by Catherine Walsh, and it sounds so cool. It's about two people who take the last plane to Dublin every Christmas, and they always sit together, and they've been doing it for the past 10 years, and they've always just been friends, but I think something happens and they get maybe stranded somewhere and they kind of fall in love. So I don't know, I just like the concept of them knowing each other for so long, but they only see each other like once a year when they take the flight back to Dublin. So I like that idea. I love the cover, it looks super cute, and I look forward to read this. I'm assuming Catherine Walsh is like a British, maybe even an Irish author, I don't know. But yeah, I look forward to that. Moving on to winter books. The only sequel I have on here is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I've been meaning to get to the sequel like for years. Like it's been taking me so long to finish the series, and so this is the third book in the Cruel Prince series. It's a fairy fantasy YA with a hate to love romance. I just love the fairy world. I think it's super interesting. I really enjoy our main character and all the scheming and political intrigue she does, and so it'd be nice to just like finish off this series. The next one I have is The King of Frost and Shadows by Jen L. Gray. This is a KU book. This one is another fairy story, and the Unseelie king really wants his property back. Yeah, he has some lands that the Seelie Fae have taken from him, and the only way to do that, to get them back, is to find the Seelie princess who is hiding in the modern world, in the human world. When he captures her, she doesn't realize that she's Fae. She doesn't remember anything, but for some reason she's the key to getting back his lands, and it sounds like maybe he has to spill her blood or something. I don't actually know, but obviously it's a fantasy romance. We probably can predict where it goes. It sounds really interesting, so I do want to give it a try. I have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I think of this as a wintry read because ice skating, of course. And the concept of this one is obviously he's a hockey player, she is a figure skater, and I think they have to share ice time or something. There's a conflict of interest when it comes to the rink schedule, and so I think he ends up being her partner's figure skating, something like that. But yeah, I think it's kind of a hate to love romance too. This one's super popular. I look forward to reading this one. I also have The Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I've been meaning to read this series for a long time. It is an alien romance. Women get stranded on this ice planet, and each girl ends up falling in love with an alien. I don't know. Sounds super fun. It sounds like something I would actually like, so we're gonna give it a try. I picked it for the winter season because it's an ice planet. You know, that's the only reason why. I have Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This one is again another hockey romance. I think she's known him forever and she's like always had a crush on him. He's a professional hockey player and she ends up being his assistant. They end up living together. I think he's super grumpy. He's a goalie. That's the story. I think it's like forced proximity, lessons in the bedroom kind of situation. Sounds fun. The last physical book I own is After Dark with the Duke. This is by Julianne Long. I picked this one for winter because it actually looks Christmassy, but from the synopsis, it does not sound Christmassy at all. She is ruined. I think she's an opera singer and she's ruined because there was a duel like for her honor or something, and so her reputation is in ruin, and he is a general and actually like I think he's a duke or a son of a duke or something, and it's their story. So sounds super cute. I only picked it because it looked super cozy. Moving on to just sequels. These are the sequels I just need to get to, one of which is The Chaperone by Noelle Adams. I've been loving her books. They are not like super well written, but I think they're just super fun. The concepts are fun. It's lighthearted, like a rom-com kind of situation. And a lot of them are either marriage of conveniences or like dates for hire. So this is a part of the companions for hire series. Our heroine, she gets hired to actually be the chaperone of our hero's daughter. So she's there just to be a companion for the daughter, to be there for her while they travel in Europe. So she goes on this trip, and obviously it's a romance between her and the father. So that sounds fun. I have The Governor's Game by Tessa Dare. This is part of the Girls Meet Duke series. If I remember correctly, I did read book 1 and really loved it a lot, and there's some friends in this book, and so the series follows them. If I remember correctly, one of them enjoyed like clocks and what is it called, winding up the clocks. That was kind of her job, and it sounds like she loses her job, so I don't know if this is the same character or not, but she has to become a governess, and she is a governess to these 2 orphan girls, and the Duke has taken them in, but he's like a rake and isn't one to settle down or anything like that, so he's a bit probably finding a struggle taking in these girls and knowing what to do, and so she comes in as a governess and it's their romance. We have my Last Duchess by Eloisa James. This is part of the Wilds of Lindo Castle series, and this is kind of like a prequel story. We're following the father of this family, and he had to remarry, and it's the story about him finding his new duchess. In the first book, we see them together and married and happy and having kids still. This is a story about them finding each other and him falling for her, and it's a bit like he falls first sort of situation, and she is a widow and he's a widower, and she has a daughter, and she wasn't planning on remarrying or anything like that, but it's about him trying to convince her to maybe consider him. Sounds so good. Also in that series is Too Wild to Wed, so this is the second book, and I'm actually really excited. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue on the series. So he is the heir to the dukedom. This is the first son. He was betrothed to someone, but she jilted him. She ran away. We don't really know why. She was really hesitant to marry him. And book 1, we kind of saw them meeting before he goes away to war. So he's back now in this story after 2 years away, and he finds her the governess in his household, and it's about their kind of maybe rekindling. I just love the idea of her running away, refusing to marry him, and then maybe kind of rekindling something. I just find it, I don't know, it sounds like it would be so fun, so I'm excited to read this one. Also have again The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. This is also part of the Wallflower series. This is kind of like again another prequel story. We are following Evie's parents. He fell in love with a lady of society, and he was a self-made man, and it's how they met, how they fell in love. I think she rejects him, and about them coming back together. So it's kind of like a prequel story in the series, and I'm actually really curious to see how this story goes. I've really liked the Wallflower series, so I'm looking forward to this one. Another book I'm getting to is Never Judge a Lady by Her Cover by Sarah MacLean. This is book 4 in the Rule of Scoundrels series. This one was interesting because so she goes by Chase at Night, who owns this gambling den. So this series is following the men who work at this gambling den, and It's run by Chase. Throughout the whole series, you're assuming Chase is the man, but it isn't revealed until book 3 that's actually a woman. So this is her story. During the day, she is a lady in society, but at night she's Chase running this gaming hell. So I think she was disgraced, and so this is why she has started this business, and she falls for Duncan West. So I've enjoyed this series. It's been like 4-star books for me. I also have Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julie Quinn. I've read the first 3 books in this series and enjoyed it. I'm not really looking forward to this book, but I kind of feel like I need to read it in order to continue on the series. This is Penelope and Colin's book based on the series. Like I watched the recent series, so I kind of already know what happens, but the books are a little bit different than the TV show, so it'll be interesting to see the difference. He's back from traveling and she's always pined over him and has always been in love with him. So it's about him realizing how much he likes her because they've always been friends. So it's kind of like a friends to lovers story. I also have A Long Time Coming by Megan Quinn. This is the 3rd book in the Kane Brothers series. This is like a retelling of My Best Friend's Wedding. He's like the main man of honor kind of idea. Like his best friend is a woman and she's getting married, and he is part of the wedding, helping her plan the wedding, and along the way he learns that maybe he actually has feelings for her. So I'm actually not sure how I feel about that concept. I don't really like Man of Honor, like the movie. Like I'll watch it, but it's not like my favorite rom-com. My Best Friend's Wedding is hard to watch too because it's like, you know, she said something a long time ago kind of thing. But I really like Megan Quinn's books. They're a lot of fun. They're very like rom-com. They're very funny. The steam is a little bit too much for me, but I usually like the concepts enough to give her books a chance. And finally, we have Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, 2nd book in the Knockmount series. I really liked book 1 a lot. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. Like I was kind of obsessed with it. I think I'll like more of her books. I've only read the 1 book, so I'm willing to continue on the series. This one's following a cop. He is the brother of the hero in book 1. His name is Nash, and he got injured on the job, and he's kind of struggling with PTSD and anxiety, and I think he falls for a neighbor. But she's like, I'm not gonna be here a long time. They kind of start fling. It's about their romance. So I'm willing to give it a try. I know her books can be quite emotional, but fun and cozy and very small town. So I'm willing to give it a try. So those are all the books I plan to read for the next 3 months. We'll see if I'm capable of doing it. Hopefully I am. I would love to know if you've read any of these books before. If you have, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions. If you have any book recommendations, I would love to know. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you have not done so. And you know what? I want you to keep reading. Bye.